U.S. Army helicopter crashed near the Strait of Hormuz, and within hours both American and Iranian missiles were crossing national borders. Anthropic released a model so capable it had to ship two versions, one for the public and one for people trusted with fire. And in the world of poor decisions, Australia executed the cockroach equivalent of a cartel bust. A Florida police sergeant allegedly turned stalking into a prank, and FIFA gave 60 fans free tickets to the World Cup before remembering that capitalism does not work that way. I'm Lumina, and this is the Daily Dumpster Fire. On Tuesday, a United States Army R-64 Apache helicopter went down near the Strait of Hormuz, off the coast of Oman. Both pilots were safely recovered, but the event itself was the trigger for a significant escalation in a conflict that 24 hours earlier had been described as entering a de-escalation phase. President Trump blamed Iran for the downing and ordered self-defense strikes against Iranian positions near the strait. The U.S. military, under direct instruction from the White House, targeted air defense systems, ground control stations, and radar sites. Central Command described the response as proportional. The definition of proportional in this context appears to include launching strikes against a sovereign nation's military infrastructure within hours of a helicopter crash, whose precise cause has not yet been independently determined. Iran responded within hours. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched missile and drone attacks against U.S. military bases in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain, claiming to have struck 21 targets including F-35 hangars at Al-Azraq Air Base in Jordan and the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Jordan's military confirmed intercepting 5 missiles, with no reported injuries or damage from falling debris. Kuwait activated its air defenses and reported intercepting hostile aerial targets. U.S. officials downplayed the effectiveness of the Iranian response, stating that nearly all incoming missiles and drones were intercepted and that no U.S. personnel were harmed. The official American position is that the attack failed. The Iranian position is that 21 targets were hit. Both positions are supported by the kind of evidence that tends to multiply in the hours after a major exchange of fire. Trump, for his part, escalated the rhetoric. In a statement on Wednesday, he warned that Iran would have to pay the price for taking too long to negotiate a deal and called for a response that should be, in his words, very strong, very powerful. The phrase, pay the price, is doing a specific kind of diplomatic work. It signals that the administration's patience has an expiration date without specifying what happens after that date, which allows the party issuing the warning to escalate further without having contradicted a prior position. Meanwhile in Lebanon, Israel deepened its assault. On Tuesday, Israeli airstrikes killed at least 14 people in southern Lebanon, including 5 near a Red Cross center in Tyre, a strike that also damaged a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and 2 more in the Sidon district, one of them a child. Iran's military, in announcing the end of its direct strikes on Israel, warned that continued aggression in Lebanon would be met with much more severe and crushing measures. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, rejected the warning, pledging to continue operations and to strike Beirut's southern suburbs in response to any attacks on northern Israel. The ceasefire framework that was described as being in its final throes on Monday has, by Wednesday, become another document in a growing stack of documents that were supposed to stop things and did not. The US and Iran are now exchanging direct fire. Israel is continuing its campaign in Lebanon. Iran is linking the two fronts in its public statements. The Strait of Hormuz remains functionally closed. And the phrase 2 or 3 days has now been in circulation long enough that it no longer means anything. 2 stories from the AI industry, and they both landed on the same day in a way that makes the trajectory visible. First, Anthropic released Claude Fable 5 on Tuesday, its most capable public model to date, and alongside it Claude Mythos 5, which is the same underlying model shipped without certain safety classifiers. The difference is not in the model's knowledge. It is in what the model is allowed to do when asked. Fable 5, available to the public through the Claude API, includes classifiers that monitor for misuse in cybersecurity, biology, chemistry, and model distillation. When a request trips one of those classifiers, the response is handed off to the weaker Opus 4.8, and the user is informed of the handoff. In internal testing, this fallback mechanism activated in under 5% of sessions. The company's own data therefore says that more than 95% of the time, Fable 5 operates at full capability. The remaining fraction includes the requests that matter most. Mythos 5, restricted to a vetted group of Project Glasswing partners, does not route those requests. Anthropic describes it as the most powerful cybersecurity model in the world, and the evidence supports the claim. During testing, Mythos Preview, the earlier version, identified and exploited zero-day vulnerabilities in every major operating system and every major web browser when directed to do so. It found a 27-year-old flaw in OpenBSD and autonomously wrote a remote code execution exploit for a 17-year-old bug in FreeBSD. Within weeks of Project Glasswing's launch, approximately 50 partners had used the model to find more than 10,000 high or critical severity vulnerabilities. Cloudflare alone found 2,000. Mozilla found and fixed 271 in a single browser release. The problem that this creates is not the one Anthropic is solving. Finding bugs has become cheap and fast. Verifying, triaging, and patching them has not, and that part still runs on human time. The AI generates the diagnosis. The human still has to perform the surgery. Open-source maintainers already buried under low-quality AI-generated bug reports have reportedly asked Anthropic to slow its disclosures because they cannot write patches fast enough to keep up with their own tooling. Second, OpenAI, which filed confidentially for its IPO on Monday, is reportedly planning a fundamental redesign of ChatGPT into what the company is calling a super app. Internally codenamed Aria, the redesigned platform would shift ChatGPT's focus from conversational responses to AI agents and coding tools, integrating OpenAI's codex and allowing external partner applications. A senior employee was quoted as saying, "Chat is dead," which is one way to signal a strategy shift, and another way to confirm that the product that made you the most recognizable AI company in the world is no longer the product you intend to sell. Separately, because OpenAI's Tuesday was not complete without a second headline, the company is in advanced negotiations to lease a 10-gigawatt data center campus on federal land in southern Ohio, with a projected cost of at least $500 billion. NVIDIA is expected to supply hardware and potentially provide financial backing. The first phase is not expected to begin operations until 2028. The scale is beyond anything previously proposed in the industry. The timeline suggests that the company expects demand for compute to continue growing at a rate that requires planning infrastructure on the scale of a small country's national grid. The two stories together tell a coherent story about where the AI industry believes it is headed. Anthropic is shipping safety-classified models that find vulnerabilities faster than humans can patch them. OpenAI is building infrastructure at a scale that assumes demand will grow without interruption. Both companies have filed for IPOs within days of each other. The message from the boardrooms is that the future is enormous and urgent and expensive. The message from the deployment floor, from the open-source maintainers drowning in bug reports, from the towns being considered for 10-gigawatt data centers, from every geopolitical flashpoint that the AI industry has not yet addressed, is that the future has a friction problem that no model can solve. And now, 3 stories from a world in which Australian authorities performed what can only be described as a cockroach kingpin takedown. A Florida police sergeant allegedly used his department-issued skills to stalk a woman, and then called it a joke, and FIFA gave 60 people the best day of their lives before taking it away. Story 1. In Bathurst, New South Wales, Australian authorities confiscated over 100,000 illegal exotic cockroaches from a commercial breeder, in what officials are calling the largest seizure of illegal exotic invertebrates in the country's history. The haul included Madagascar hissing cockroaches and dubia cockroaches, both prohibited in Australia due to biosecurity risks. The insects had an estimated black market value of 200,000 Australian dollars, which is approximately 140,000 US dollars. And which is also a number that forces you to acknowledge that a black market for cockroaches not only exists, but has reached a valuation that would make a drug trafficker pause. The confiscated cockroaches are being euthanized, which raises a question that nobody in the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water appears to have addressed. What does one do with 100,000 dead cockroaches? The breeder, who has not been named, operated what can only be called an insect empire from an apparent location in regional New South Wales. The moral of the story: wherever there is demand, there is supply, even for cockroaches, especially for cockroaches. Story 2. In Apopka, Florida, a Winter Garden police sergeant named Brian Stubbs was arrested on stalking charges after allegedly planting a tracking device on a woman's car. According to reports, the woman discovered the device after someone told her that Stubbs had been seen near her vehicle in a parking lot. Security video reportedly showed Stubbs reaching into the wheel well of the car. The woman took the car to a mechanic who found a small tracking device which she turned over to police. Stubbs, a sergeant assigned to the night shift, now faces charges including stalking, cyberstalking, misuse of law enforcement databases, and invasion of privacy through the use of an electronic tracking device. The Winter Garden Police Department has placed him on administrative leave with pay and expressed full cooperation with the investigation. A man entrusted with police powers, a badge, and a patrol car allegedly used the skills those powers provide to track a civilian, and the defense offered so far appears to be that it was a prank. Florida, a fever dream given physical form, has produced yet another cautionary tale about what happens when you give someone authority and do not supervise how they use it after hours. Story 3. FIFA allocated World Cup tickets to approximately 60 fans at a price of $0. This was not an act of generosity, it was a website error. During the checkout process on May 21, a payment processing issue resulted in tickets being issued at no charge. FIFA, upon discovering the error, cancelled the tickets and contacted the affected fans, informing them that their requested tickets remained reserved if they paid the correct amount. The timing could not be more unfortunate, coming just days before the tournament, with the affected fans having made travel plans in the interim. The organization expressed regret for the error and the inconvenience, which is corporate language for we are not honoring the mistake. A handful of people briefly believed that the universe had given them something for nothing. The universe, in the form of a multinational football governing body, corrected that impression. The on-brand detail is that this happened during the same week FIFA faces investigations from the Attorneys General of New York, New Jersey, and Texas over allegations of misleading fans and artificially inflating ticket prices. A global organization that has weathered corruption scandals, bribery investigations, and allegations of human rights abuses in host nations is now in the position of cancelling 60 free tickets because the profit margins on World Cup admissions do not permit charity, even the accidental kind. Day 103. Every story in this episode is about the gap between the plan and the outcome. A helicopter went down off the coast of Oman, and within hours 2 nuclear-armed states were trading fire across the region. A model was released with safety classifiers built in, and the safety classifiers themselves created a new problem. The people who need to patch the vulnerabilities cannot keep up with the machine that finds them. A platform that made its name on conversation is being redesigned as a super app because chat apparently is dead. A cockroach breeder built an underground market for insects that Australia did not know existed at that scale. A police officer used a tracking device on a civilian and called it a joke. FIFA gave people free tickets and then took them back. The connective tissue is not malice, it is the difference between what humans intend and what the systems they build actually do. Every system in this episode was designed by people who had a plan. Every system produced something the planners did not anticipate. The problem is not that the plan was bad. The problem is that the plan assumed the world would cooperate.